Hey guys, and welcome to... You already know what this is. I was actually going to record something else tonight. I've been basically wasting all of my time in Skype calls and all that. I decided to finally record something. But just before I get to stream, I figured I would actually do something on like there's a couple of things I could have done, like Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 is something that I kind of wanted to pick up, and there's also City Skylines, which I still have some videos of. But in the end, I still feel like the Let's Play is the thing that I like the most at the moment. And today I've got some simple stuff. By the way, this pier looks like absolute shit, so that is gone in a second. But today there is some work on some facades over here. Now these are going to be quite different than the facades that I had before. The main thing was that I was kind of going to have like a sort of cityscape Spanish style, which was mostly derived from the Madrid pictures that I kind of got my inspiration from, and what I kind of based everything on up until this point. But there were a couple of very important discoveries that kind of led me to adopt a more rural kind of style in this area. Well, for one, it actually is something that I wanted to do since I didn't really see it yet, and I really felt like if I don't have that in the park somewhere, I'm just missing out on something. But it also just turned out that Pet's Efteling set has roofs that are perfect, absolutely perfect for Spanish roofs. So at this point, I pretty much discarded T4L's, no, it's TNS, was it T4, oh, no, it's TNS, roof tile set that is supposedly, like a set that is used for Spanish roofs, but the only problem is it is very bright. It doesn't really have a very good ending to its model, and overall just the Pets Efteling set textures are less bright, not as versatile, so that's a bit of the downside to it, but overall I just like it a tiny bit more. And with that also kind of came the idea that Alpine Village is the perfect set for the walls for Spanish buildings. So the main core, I figured, would be Alpine Village for the walls, having those white stucco walls that, you know, the Spanish/Mediterranean buildings as a whole are quite famous for, and pair those with the Efteling set roofs, and that actually turned out to be an amazing combination. That, as well as a random little wall that I once made for no apparent reason. Like, I still have no idea why I even made that. Never really used it because I always figured it was a terrible wall. But it's basically a wall with a natural stone texture, and that actually turned out to be perfect for Mediterranean stuff. So in the end, that's kind of why I figured to just give those sets a try, after I kind of messed around with it and saw what was possible, and see if I could just wing it and get a decent facade over here. If that would happen, I would keep the facade and get more of this rural kind of Spanish stuff in this section of the park. And if it failed, I would cry in a corner somewhere, cut myself, and just give up on everything. And no, I would have no idea what I was actually going to do in this area. Maybe a more cityscape kind of style, just like the other side of the lake. But that's something which I just didn't really want to do in the end. So I'm actually quite happy that it kind of worked out in the end. Although that's a bit of a spoiler. I suppose I can just say, yes, this facade did work out in the end. I'm pretty happy about it afterwards, actually. There's definitely a couple of things that I might want to change, and some issues with it, but overall I just really like it, and it sets the mood as well as having some nice details, though there is one big but, but I should get to that later in this episode. It has all to do with one tower. In any case, for this style, I kind of just wanted to keep it more simple. As you see, the facades of like the city area are quite dense, have like many pillars and arches and all kinds of interesting stuff going on. But the rural things, I just wanted to keep as much of the white walls visible as I could without getting it to look too boring. So it turned out that some Main Street windows with some shutters from Catfish Cove were actually quite cool for that. And to kind of spice it up, even though I didn't like have any of the details like the pillars and arches that I could get in there, I figured that the vines might actually work for that. It also kind of helps to get that more rural look to it, it's like a bit of an overgrown farmer's house, like a farmer who doesn't give a shit about his house and just lets vines grow over it, or like some farmer who really loves nature and wants to have it all around him. In any case, something stupid like that. That was basically not my idea, but I figured, yeah, that's how you can look at it anyway. And The great thing about this facade, I must say though, and one of the things that really did make it come out a lot better than any normal straight facade could have ever looked, is the fact that it is placed on such a tiny space and it has that really weird kind of curve. Since the path right there where I wanted to build the facade is diagonal, but it also kind of curves into the straight path with the boulevard for a second. It was a really weird placement to try and build a facade on, and that is actually, in the end, I think what makes it so good. So you get like the different buildings with different heights, but also different placements, the straight buildings and diagonal buildings, and some of the buildings just kind of stick out more than the others, and that just turned out to look amazing in the end. So yeah, everything just kind of seemed to be right for this facade, honestly, so I can say afterwards that it's actually been a pretty good experiment, I suppose. Though the backsides are definitely still something to look at. These were just very quickly whipped up to have something on the backside. I might want to look at that later on, though, honestly. It is just the backside, and what kind of theme park would add all kinds of details to a backside. But yeah, this is pretty much how all of these buildings are going to be. Which is also the one downside, and why I don't want to place too many of them, is that to me it kind of feels like a one-trick pony. Since I have finally found like the sets that I really like building them with, and the way that I can really build them in a way that I can get behind. The problem with that is that they're all gonna look incredibly similar, so I don't want to get too many of them, especially not in one small area, so I do kind of want to watch out with that and not place too many of them, but it should be alright in the end. Also, what turned out to be a very handy thing over here is to just kind of place walls in a sense that you can just plan your facade beforehand, so you can, I think they call this a mass study in like architecture world. I'm pretty sure they call it that. I don't want to seem stupid over here, but something like that. Just so you place basically the mass of what the buildings are going to look like before you actually build the buildings itself, before you actually apply any of the details or anything that you really want it to have. So you can kind of see what the shape is going to be of the building, how much of an impact it's going to make on the overall facade. And honestly, I've never really done this too much, and I think that was really a big mistake in the past, since it really just helps out a lot to build your building blocks before you actually get any of the details in, to kind of see how that is going to look in the end. And here's also kind of what I meant with like the layering. As you can see, by placing those very straight walls everywhere, but on a diagonal place like that, it just creates a tiny bit amount of more depth and just a more interesting facade overall. And that tower is actually kind of the tower that I was talking about when it comes to the little issues. I suppose I can kind of just talk about that. Basically, I got into Skype call with Black Diversity and Blackout. Kind of did like a private stream thing, just kind of build these facades and just kind of ask for some feedback, kind of. And yeah, eventually started working on that tower, and there were like heap loads of different ideas, and they all had to be compressed into one good tower, which was an extremely hard thing to do. And overall, I think I spent like 2 hours trying to get the right pieces of custom scenery, trying to get that right like top piece of that little church building with all kinds of domes and pillars and towers and all kinds of fancy details. But at that point I realized it really wasn't going anywhere, so I decided to make some custom scenery, made that, imported that, put it on there, and it still didn't entirely work. And then after like 3 or 4 hours of work, deleted everything and put it in as a simple rural tower with just a simple Pets Efteling roof. And that was pretty much how that happened. So yeah, sometimes putting effort into something really isn't the best thing. Sometimes it's better to keep things simple in the end, since I really do think that tower was best just kept simple. Same goes for these buildings, by the way. They are really simple when you look at it. No real big details or no really interesting shapes when it comes to it. It's really just the overall composition of the facade, I think, that helps it in a way. Also, that Spanish building, that's one with the incredibly bright orange roofs, will be removed at some point in future. I don't know exactly when, but it just kind of has to be gone. Yeah, it's gonna be sad to see it go, but it honestly doesn't really work here. It's especially with like all of the things placed that I have right now, it really doesn't fit what I currently have. And overall, it just looks bad, I think. So I'm gonna have to remove that. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm gonna have there. I might have like a facade that's kind of similar to this. Might also have just one building, but I'm really not sure when it comes to that stuff. That's just something to see in the future. In any case, that is all in the future. See, I'm getting ahead of myself again. This facade is basically what needs to be finished right now in the present. And this was also some idea from like that little brainstorming session on Skype. Figuring that I could get something like this in, just a tiny little porch looking, whatever you would even call this thing, so I could get some fun vines in and flowers and stuff like that. I definitely think that it has helped a lot to get foliage in on this thing, though that's also something that you'll see in the future. Just getting these tiny little details like this porch looking thing, I don't know even exactly what those things are called, with the hanging plants and in the future also some vines, really did help shape the look of the buildings overall. The vines which are coming at this moment right now. Yeah, without the vines, I think these buildings really wouldn't have looked as good as they currently do. Like I said, there's definitely a couple of things that I'm not too sure about, like the windows, what types of windows I used, what types of cornices I used. Some cornices are really a bit too fancy over here, especially those masonry ones for the rural buildings that these are trying to be, but overall, I'm just kind of happy about it, yeah, in the end. And this was just also, aside from being a way to get more foliage into this thing, into this building overall, it was just a way to get more detail onto it, since I couldn't have the pillars and arches, the fancy stuff. Just a tiny little porch, that tiny little canopy, and other details that you can kind of just randomly add to buildings were supposed to help shape this area more overall. So yeah, that's also a tiny thing. That being said, I'm trying to give as many tips as I can along the way, but like always, I'm definitely not sure about everything I build, and if there's any feedback, like anything that I might want to change or have to improve, don't hesitate to say that either, though I probably have said this in the past. In any case, I'm just looking for excuses to round up the video, alright? To round up the video, alright, since this is the end of the video. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. That was the worst outro-ish thing I've ever done. I'm very sorry. I'll try to do a better one next time. In any case, see you, Space Cowboys.